There comes a time in your life when God will call you to silence, not because you have nothing to say, not because you don't have a voice, but because he is teaching you how to hear what your spirit has been trying to say all along. Silence is not weakness. Silence is not surrender. Silence is strategy. It's the moment when heaven is doing more behind the scenes than your words could ever accomplish in the open. You see, sometimes we speak so much that we drown out the very answer we've been praying for. We talk ourselves into frustration. We talk ourselves into doubt. We talk ourselves into believing that God forgot about us. But he didn't. He's just waiting for you to get still enough to listen. There's power in staying silent when everything in you wants to explain, defend, and prove. You think that if you stay quiet, people will walk over you. They'll misunderstand you. They'll underestimate you. But can I tell you something? Sometimes being underestimated is the greatest gift you could ever receive. Because while they're talking, you're growing. While they're gossiping, you're praying. While they're making moves that look flashy, you're being shaped in secret. And when your moment comes, it won't require you to say a word. Your results will speak for you. You've been trying to tell people what God is doing in your life, but they can't see it yet because it's still under construction. That's why he told you to stay silent, because some visions are too fragile to survive public opinion. Some dreams are still forming, and exposure too soon could destroy what's divine. The womb of silence is where God develops the promise. It's where he strengthens you for what's coming. It's where he teaches you to trust his timing more than your own understanding. There's a difference between silence and stillness. You can be quiet on the outside, but chaotic on the inside. This is about a holy silence. A silence that allows your spirit to breathe again. A silence that tells your fears, you don't control me anymore. A silence that says, God, I trust you enough to stop trying to fix everything myself. Because when you stop fighting for control, that's when God steps in and shows you what real control looks like. He's not looking for your noise. He's looking for your surrender. Sometimes we think faith is loud. We think faith means shouting the promises of God from the rooftops. But real faith is being silent in the face of confusion and still believing that everything is working for your good. Real faith is when you stop explaining yourself and start aligning yourself. When you no longer need to convince people that you're chosen because you've already been confirmed by the Creator. You don't have to argue for what's already yours. You don't have to chase validation when heaven has already stamped you approved. Silence is where transformation happens. It's where God detoxes your mind from the noise of comparison and resets your focus. You can't hear your calling if you're too busy listening to the crowd. That's why he isolates you. That's why people start to fall away. That's why doors close. It's not punishment, it's preparation. Because when you learn to be silent, you stop reacting and start discerning. You begin to see who's really for you and who's only comfortable when you're small. You begin to realize that your worth was never tied to their opinions. You've been in a season where it feels like nobody sees you. You've been faithful, consistent, obedient, and yet overlooked. But let me tell you, the silence is not rejection, it's protection. God hides those he's preparing. He will keep you in the background until you're ready to carry the weight of the blessing. Because if you get it too soon, it could crush you. But when you've been refined in silence, you can handle the spotlight without losing your soul. You don't need to respond to every rumor. You don't need to clap back at every lie. Sometimes silence is the loudest response you can give, because when you've been with God, you don't have to prove who you are. Your peace becomes your evidence. Your progress becomes your revenge. And your silence becomes your sermon. Let them wonder. Let them question, because when God reveals what he's been doing in private, every doubt will turn into confirmation. Maybe you're in a waiting season right now. Maybe you're praying and it feels like heaven is quiet. But what if God's silence isn't absence? What if it's strategy? What if he's using this silence to teach you how to hear his whisper again? What if he's building your endurance so that when you step into the promise, you'll know how to carry it with grace? Sometimes God will let you sit in silence so that when he speaks, you'll know it's him. It's easy to shout in victory, but can you stay silent in uncertainty? Can you trust that even when you don't see movement, something is still shifting? Silence doesn't mean stagnation. It means gestation. It means something is growing. Something is forming. You just can't see it yet. And when it finally comes forth, you'll realize why God kept you hidden. He was protecting the version of you that was still evolving. The world teaches you to always speak up, to always show up, to always post, to always prove. But there's a different kind of strength and restraint. There's power in moving quietly, because quiet moves are often the most effective ones. You don't need to announce every step. You don't need to tell everybody your next plan. Let your growth shock them. Let your success surprise them. Stay silent long enough for your results to echo louder than your explanations ever could. Don't mistake silence for inactivity. God is still working. He's rearranging situations, touching hearts, and opening doors you haven't even knocked on yet. He's setting the stage for your arrival. But he's doing it quietly, because when the reveal comes, it won't be a whisper. It'll be a roar. Everyone who doubted you will have to acknowledge that God's hand was on you the entire time. You may feel like you're being overlooked, but you're really being positioned. You may feel like you've lost your voice, but you're really learning how to use it with purpose. Every moment of silence is sharpening your discernment, strengthening your faith, and humbling your heart. Because when you finally speak again, your words will carry weight. You'll speak from wisdom, not from wounds. You'll speak from peace, not from pain. There's a version of you that can only be birthed in quiet places. The version that doesn't need to explain itself. The version that no longer seeks applause. The version that walks in power without needing permission. That version of you is being formed right now in the silence. So don't rush it. Don't resent it. Embrace it. Let God finish what he started. Because when the silence breaks, it won't just be your voice that comes forth. It'll be your victory. Stay silent, not because you're defeated, but because you're being developed. Stay silent, not because you don't care, but because you finally do. Stay silent because you've learned that peace is more powerful than proving. Stay silent because you trust that what's meant for you can't miss you. Stay silent because your time is coming, and when it does, everything you lost, everything you cried for, everything you prayed for will find its way back to you in ways you never imagined. Stay silent. You will get everything in life that was already written for you. Silence is one of the most misunderstood seasons of life. We are conditioned to believe that speaking up, defending ourselves, and proving our worth are signs of strength. But there comes a moment when God calls you into silence, not to punish you, but to position you. Silence is not surrender, it's strategy. It's a sacred space where heaven moves in ways that your words could never orchestrate. It's where God does his most powerful work, not in the noise of the crowd, but in the quiet chambers of your heart. When you choose silence, it doesn't mean you've given up. It means you've grown up. It means you've reached a level of faith that no longer needs to explain, justify, or convince anyone of what God is doing in your life. You've learned that not every battle is fought with words. Some are won in stillness. Some are won on your knees. Some are won by trusting that God's voice is louder in the quiet than yours ever could be in the chaos. Silence teaches discipline. It teaches you to resist the urge to react out of emotion and instead respond out of wisdom. There are moments when silence will be your greatest form of strength because it protects your peace. You cannot carry the anointing God has for you if you're constantly wasting energy on things that don't deserve your attention. When you learn to be silent, you start to guard your spirit. You realize that not every accusation requires an answer, not every insult deserves your involvement, and not every misunderstanding needs your defense. There is power in not explaining yourself. Because when God is your defender, you don't have to play both roles. You don't need to prove your innocence, your purpose, or your growth. The truth doesn't need to scream. It stands still and remains true even when no one believes it. Sometimes God will allow false assumptions to circulate just to see if you trust him enough to remain silent while he works it out for your good. In silence, God teaches you to discern. When you stop talking so much, you start hearing more clearly. You begin to notice the subtle ways he guides you, the quiet confirmations that show up in your spirit, the whispers that remind you that you're still on the right path. It's in silence that God reveals what's next, because he knows he can only speak clearly when you're not trying to control the outcome with your words. Silence is not about doing nothing. It's about letting God do everything. When you stop fighting for attention, he begins to shine through you. When you stop trying to open doors that aren't meant for you, he starts unlocking the ones you couldn't reach on your own. When you stop talking about what you're going to do, he starts manifesting what he already promised you would have. Silence becomes the soil where destiny takes root. People often mistake silence for weakness, but silence requires a strength most people never develop. It's easy to react, to defend, to argue. It takes real power to remain composed when your emotions are loud, but your spirit says, wait. The silence is your preparation ground. It's where God trains your patience, builds your confidence, and teaches you how to trust the unseen. You may feel like nothing is happening, but everything is being aligned. God is moving pieces you don't even know exist, connecting people, rearranging circumstances, and writing a story that only makes sense once it's complete. The strategy of silence also protects your purpose. Not everyone is meant to know what God is doing in you. Some things lose power when exposed too early. God keeps certain promises hidden in your heart because premature exposure can attract unnecessary attack. When you stay silent, you protect your vision from the voices that might try to talk you out of it. You protect your destiny from people who cannot comprehend it. You protect your peace from opinions that have no place in your process. In silence, you learn that timing is everything. There's a reason Jesus didn't perform miracles in front of everyone, and there's a reason he often withdrew to quiet places. Even the Son of God valued silence as a strategy. He knew that not every revelation was meant for public consumption. He knew that divine power requires divine discretion. There's wisdom in waiting, in watching, and in working quietly while the world wonders what's happening with you. Sometimes God silences you so you can observe. You start to see who's truly for you, who's pretending, and who's just curious. You learn how to read the room without reacting to it. You start recognizing patterns in people, understanding motives, and identifying where you've been wasting emotional energy. Silence gives you perspective. It sharpens your spiritual vision so you can move strategically, not impulsively. There are moments when silence becomes your sanctuary. When life feels noisy, silence reminds you that you don't have to compete with chaos. You don't have to shout to be seen. You don't have to speak to be significant. Your power isn't in your volume. It's in your value. God is teaching you to stand firm, not loud, because when you truly know who you are and whose you are, you can walk quietly into rooms that once intimidated you and still command authority without saying a word. The strategy of silence also matures your character. It's easy to talk faith, but silence tests if you truly live it. Can you stay quiet while being misunderstood? Can you hold your peace when your reputation is on the line? Can you trust that God will vindicate you without you having to defend yourself? These are the moments that separate the spiritually strong from the spiritually impulsive. Every time you choose silence over chaos, heaven celebrates your growth. And when the silence finally breaks, you'll realize why it was necessary. Because the version of you that emerges from silence will not be the same person who entered it. You'll be wiser, calmer, stronger, and more aligned with your purpose. You'll speak with authority because your words will come from a place of revelation, not reaction. Silence taught you to listen. It taught you to trust. It taught you that God's plan is far greater than your need to be understood. So the next time you feel the urge to explain yourself, to prove your point, or to fight a battle that doesn't belong to you, remember this: silence is not surrender, it's strategy. It's your signal to step back and let God step in. Because when he moves, your silence will speak louder than your words ever could. There are seasons in life where you feel hidden, overlooked, or forgotten. You're showing up, doing the work, praying the prayers, and keeping the faith, yet it feels like no one notices. You look around and see others getting opportunities, open doors, recognition, and you start to wonder if maybe God skipped over you. But what you don't realize is that being hidden doesn't mean being forgotten. It means you're being protected. You're in the process of becoming. And sometimes the most sacred transformation happens in secret. The hidden season is not a punishment. It's a holy season where God prepares you privately for what he will reveal publicly. In hidden seasons, God is doing more in you than he is through you. You're being refined, reshaped, and renewed in ways that only solitude can accomplish. When God hides you, he's not withholding your destiny. He's strengthening your foundation so that when the weight of your purpose comes, you won't crumble under it. Just because no one sees the construction doesn't mean it's not happening. The foundation of a building is never visible, but it's what holds everything else together. God is laying your foundation right now deep enough to carry what he's about to build on top of it. There's something sacred about being unseen, because when no one is clapping, you learn to clap for yourself. When no one is validating you, you learn to draw validation from God. When no one is watching, you develop integrity, humility, and authenticity. The hidden season builds what the public season will reveal. It's where your character catches up to your calling, where your obedience is tested, and where your dependence on God becomes unshakable. It's tempting to want to rush out of this season. You might feel ready. You might think you've waited long enough. But if God is still hiding you, it's because there's still something inside you that he's perfecting. You see, premature exposure can destroy divine destiny. If you get what you prayed for too early, it can crush you instead of grow you. God hides you to heal you, to strengthen your identity, and to remove anything in you that could sabotage your promise. He's protecting you from platforms you're not ready for yet, from relationships that could distract you, and from opportunities that look like blessings but are really traps in disguise. While you're hidden, people might misunderstand your silence. They might assume you're stagnant, lazy, or irrelevant. But what they can't see is that you're in a sacred classroom with God. He's teaching you discipline, humility, and spiritual authority. He's training your ears to recognize his voice and your heart to follow his timing. You're learning to move at the rhythm of heaven instead of the rush of the world. This is where your intimacy with God deepens, where you learn that your value isn't determined by visibility. You start to realize that being seen by God is far greater than being noticed by people. When you're hidden, you're in divine isolation, not rejection. God separates you so he can elevate you. The same way a seed is buried in the ground. You've been planted, not buried. There's a difference. Burial is final, but planting is the beginning of something new. The darkness you're in isn't meant to end you. It's meant to grow you. In the soil, the seed breaks open before it breaks through. That breaking feels painful, but it's necessary. God is breaking the old version of you to release the greater version that's been trapped inside. The hidden season also reveals who you really are when no one's watching. It exposes motives, purifies intentions, and aligns your heart with heaven. It's easy to perform when eyes are on you, but authenticity is forged in private. God is testing if you can stay faithful without applause, consistent without recognition, and obedient without reward. Because if you can handle obscurity with grace, you'll handle influence with humility. If you can steward a small space with excellence, you'll steward a large one with integrity. You might be wondering why God is taking so long to reveal you, but divine timing is never delayed. He's aligning people, opportunities, and seasons to intersect perfectly when you're ready. The waiting is not wasted. Every unseen moment is preparation for a visible miracle. Every quiet prayer, every private tear, every silent act of obedience is building something eternal in you. God doesn't forget faithfulness. He honors it in ways that will leave you speechless when the time comes. And while you wait, God is dealing with the parts of you that can't go where he's taking you. The insecurities, the pride, the need for validation, all of that has to die in the hidden place. Because where he's sending you, you'll need to know who you are. You'll need to be rooted in purpose, not applause, grounded in faith, not fear, anchored in peace, not pressure. The hidden season is where God secures your identity so the world can't shake it later. Being hidden also gives you the gift of perspective. You begin to understand that visibility is not the goal, impact is. You start to realize that purpose is not about popularity, it's about service. You stop chasing platforms and start chasing God's presence. You stop asking for recognition and start asking for refinement. You begin to understand that success without preparation is failure in disguise. There's something powerful about the people who come out of hidden seasons. They carry a quiet confidence. They walk in peace that can't be shaken. They don't need to announce themselves because their presence carries weight. They've learned to let their fruit speak for them. They've learned that God doesn't need crowds to confirm his call. When he says it's time, no one can stop what he's set in motion. You might be hidden now, but you're not forgotten. You're not being punished. You're being processed. You're not behind. You're being built. God's silence is not absence, it's activity. He's constructing something in you that will sustain everything he's promised. So don't despise the hidden season. Cherish it, because this is where you are becoming the person who can handle everything you've been praying for. Hidden seasons are holy seasons. They are proof that God loves you too much to reveal you before you're ready. There comes a moment when you realize that you no longer need to explain yourself to anyone. That moment is when peace starts to reign over your life. You stop trying to convince people to see what only God showed you in private. You stop exhausting your energy on proving your worth to those who were never assigned to validate you. You stop responding to every criticism, every whisper, every misunderstanding. Because you understand that what God is doing in your life doesn't require a public announcement. It just needs time. The results of obedience always speak louder than words ever could. There's freedom in no longer needing to be understood. You learn to move in silence, to build quietly, to grow without explaining every step. Because the truth is, not everyone deserves access to your process. Some people will misinterpret it, others will minimize it, and a few will even mock it. That's why God calls you to silence while He's shaping your next level. He wants you to learn that your purpose doesn't need validation. It needs manifestation. When your life starts producing fruit, your results will tell the story words never could. You've spent too much energy trying to convince people of your calling, your growth, your transformation. But you don't have to. The people who are meant to recognize your value will see it without you saying a word. The ones who doubt you aren't your audience anyway. Let your consistency be your testimony. Let your peace be your proof. Because nothing silences the noise like undeniable results. You don't have to argue when your actions are aligned with purpose. You don't have to defend when your progress is evident. God will let your fruit speak for you in seasons where your voice is no longer necessary. When you start walking with God, He teaches you that vindication doesn't always come through confrontation. Sometimes it comes through elevation. When God starts blessing you publicly after you endured privately, that's His way of showing that He was listening all along. You don't have to clap back when heaven already has your back. You don't have to retaliate when God is your defender. When He lifts you up, every person who doubted you will have to acknowledge that His hand was on your life from the very beginning. Letting your results speak means trusting the process even when it looks slow. Growth isn't always visible. Sometimes it's happening underground, in places no one sees. The roots are spreading, the foundation is strengthening, and though it looks like nothing is moving, everything is being prepared. When the time is right, what's been hidden will bloom in front of everyone who thought you were done. That's why you don't need to announce every step or post every progress.
Let's stay connected, stay positive, and grow together. Until next time, take care of yourself and each other. Stay safe, stay inspired, and see you in the next video.